All right, folks. I'm going to start this series of videos off that's going to be about movies and television. And just by a way of introduction, you know, I was originally, I had delusions of grandeur that I was going to do formal sit-down videos and have clips of shows, and you know, you know, maybe if this was like a real channel where I was like making significant amounts of money and I was doing it semi-professionally, I would do that. But I don't have the time to really, or maybe it's interest. I have other things that are more, it's not prioritized to do really professional work like that. And also the time it would take for me the learning curve. So I'm gonna, you're gonna just have to get it this way. I'll probably do most of these, not all of these, but most of these on driving videos, because that seems to be the way that works best for me, given my schedule. But I'll probably do some sit down and maybe have some, I don't know, we'll see. I'll see if I can manage clips. That might be beyond my technical ability. So the first video I wanted to do was about television shows. And you know, really since probably The Sopranos came out in the late 90s, I think it was, we've been seeing a bit of a golden age of television. You know, as far as I understand it, you know, there's been different rises and falls, but you know, before then, television was a distant second behind film in terms of talent, right? You might start off as a TV actor and then go into film. And that's still somewhat the case. But the thing is now, you know, over the last 15 plus years, the quality level of television has risen. Not all, obviously. There's still, most of it's still crap. Sturgeon's law definitely applies to television. But, you know, especially through HBO, but also Showtime, and now other channels, you have these quote-unquote premier shows that have a higher level of talent, higher level of production quality, writing, etc. And The Sopranos was really the one that, it wasn't necessarily the first, but it really brought these new premier shows into the public eye. So after The Sopranos, you had shows like 6 Feet Under and Deadwood. I'm kind of blanking. There's probably many more that are now gone. But those are some of the ones that were the highest quality in the late 90s, early aughties. And it's still the case today. So my first category of film and TV are television dramas, which are an hour long. And originally I was going to do a list that was all television shows, because there's only so many shows that I watch. But I've at least sampled a bunch of different shows. So, I have a sense of it. So the first, I'll do one that's like a top 5 list plus honorable mentions for television dramas that are currently active. And then probably a top 5 list of half-an-hour sitcoms, which again, there are quote-unquote premier or premium sitcoms as well. So what I'll do is I'll give you a list of my 5 favorite dramas, talk about them a little bit, and also discuss several honorable mentions. These are dramas, these are fictional stories, they're not news stories, documentaries, that sort of thing. That's a separate category. Actually, probably my favorite television show of all is in that category, is a fictional, or is a, well, I guess you could say it's fictional, is a news show. So I had, my top 4 are pretty easy for me, I think. I pretty much know what my top 4 television shows are, dramas. But number 5 is hard for me to really, I haven't really solidified it yet. So I'm using the 5th slot, number 5, as my honorable mention slot. And so I'll hold off on discussing I'll do the honorable mentions at the end. So I'm going to go to number 4, and number 4 is The Good Wife. That's right, The Good Wife. It is a show popular among the Hillary Clinton type of woman. the power professional woman. No, but it's a really good television show, and it's the only show on my list that's a major network. That's on a major network. It's just a really well-made television drama. It's a legal drama. There's great characters, great actors. Juliana Margulies is terrific. I forget her name. Christine. Oh, I forget. But the woman, Diane, who plays Diane Lockhart, is excellent. Alan Cummings is Eli Gold. There's some really great secondary characters. It's just a really high quality television show. I was sad to hear that I think this might be its last season. I think Juliana Margulies is departing. She's had enough. It's the 7th year. How long can you do a show? I imagine actors get bored after a while. But it's an excellent show. It's an interesting show in that it doesn't, the top 3 have a strong allure that I just have to see the next episode. This one, it doesn't have the same feeling, but whenever I watch it, I'm always almost surprised. Oh, this is such a good show. So it doesn't have the same quote-unquote sex appeal as the other shows do for me. But it's just high-quality television. All right, that's number 4, The Good Wife. Number 3, I am putting as Game of Thrones. Now, one would think, given my tastes, that Game of Thrones would be number 1. I'm a fantasy nerd, but I'm also a fantasy snob. And the fact that Game of Thrones is on this list at number 3 means that it's really good. But I'm very, very particular, probably more particular than others would be, and I have specific tastes. I really like Game of Thrones. I do feel that there's too many kind of, I wouldn't say filler episodes, but there are episodes that just, you finish and you're like, what happened? Like, I don't think anything happened. Whereas something like The Good Wife is really adept at, each episode is its own story. Game of Thrones, it's a big, large story. So some of the episodes are just continuing parts. There's not really a lot that goes on. Some episodes, though, at its best, Game of Thrones is the most exciting television, in my opinion. The last several episodes of the previous season were just terrific. It built and built, and it was just very, very, very good and exciting. It's definitely a fun, enjoyable show. I actually started reading the books before the show came out because it's in the fantasy genre. It's really, they're really considered some of the better ones out there. And I read the first one and I really liked it, but I didn't love it. And before I started the second one, I heard about the show coming out, and I thought, there's plenty of good fantasy novels to read, but there's no good fantasy television shows. So I decided to save my Game of Thrones slot for the show and not read the books, because I'll read other books. But there's nothing else out there that's good fantasy. Shannara was awful, but that's a whole other thing. So yeah, that would be Game of Thrones is number 3. Number 2 is The Walking Dead. I was tempted to put this as number 1, but I'm gonna put this as number 2, and I'm just bemused at why zombie terror is so addictive, and why this show is so riveting. Despite, zombies aren't very interesting villains. They're not, they're straightforward, but it's not really about the zombies. It's about the survival. It's about the extreme situations these people are in, and for whatever reason, the zombies work. It's just, the show works. My wife, who's not at all into this sort of thing, is totally hooked. She loves the show. She turns away during some of the worst zombie attacks. She hides her face, doesn't want to watch. But it's just really good, fun television. I can't stop watching. I really enjoy it. I'm also very impressed with the new series Fear the Walking Dead, but I'm putting that in the honorable mentions category because we've only had 6 episodes. But yeah, I was worried that the show was prematurely jumping the shark. I didn't really like the new Dark Rick, but I remain transfixed. It's a really, really good show. So this leaves us with number 1, my top my favorite TV drama, and that goes to Ray Donovan. Yes, Ray Donovan, starring Liev Schreiber and Jon Voight, who are both fantastic. I don't think there's a, it's interesting. I held off on watching the show for a while because just reading the description of it didn't excite me at all. I didn't think like a Hollywood fixer. It's just not kind of gangstery type thing. It's kind of overdone, like law and hospital shows. But I don't think there's a show on television where each episode is so satisfying, where there's humor and drama and tragedy, and it touches so many different bases. Jon Voight's character is hilarious and awful at the same time. I also love the brothers, especially Dash Mihawk, Bunchy. Just terrific acting, terrific characters, terrific writing. It's just, really, Liev Schreiber and Jon Voight are the central characters, and they're both great, but the secondary cast is awesome as well. In a way, I think these top three I could rank in any order. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, and Ray Donovan. They all touch different bases for me. And again, I'm tempted to put Walking Dead. I would say I'm almost more addicted to Walking Dead than Ray Donovan. But I think I appreciate Ray Donovan artistically more. I think it's just a better show. So those are my top four in reverse order. Number 4, The Good Wife. Number 3, Game of Thrones. Number 2, The Walking Dead. And number 1, Ray Donovan. And now here's the honorable mentions. One is The Leftovers. On one hand, The Leftovers is it feels like style over substance. I'm not really sure where they're going. There's a sense, like with Lost, that there's something profound to be revealed, but I remain it's almost like you can't judge The Leftovers until it's done. I think the second season was a lot better than the first. I think there were some really profound moments and some really good episodes. And I'm intrigued. I want to see where it goes. There's only one more season. I think it was originally just a 3-season, almost a mini series. But it has this feeling of potential, but I don't know if they're going to really fully actualize it. So that's an honorable mention. Another honorable mention is Bosch, which is an Amazon Prime show, which is excellent. It reminds me of Ray Donovan in many ways, where it's centered around the main character, the titular character, who's just excellent actor. I forget that guy's name, but he's an excellent actor, great character, wears a Rolex Submariner, or a Sea Dweller, I'm not sure. Same thing, really. Yeah, I didn't, it's not, I could have easily put that number 5, Bosch, but I felt like, I need to see more than just one season. Another honorable mention is True Detective, which, if the second season had been like the first season, it could be number 1 on my list. The first season was awesome. It was just, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson were great, but Matthew McConaughey in particular, I loved his character, this existential guy. I totally related with so much of what he said. I liked number 2, or the second season. I think it was a bit underrated. People complained a lot about it, but I think that's relative to the first season. I think it was also more disjointed. It was hard to follow. The actor, they weren't quite as magnetic as his other two. For me, it didn't have the philosophical depth as the first one. It was more like, it was again, that style over substance. So you never really sure what was going on, at least I wasn't. And then there's 2 other honorable mentions. I mentioned Fear the Walking Dead, which I think could be better than The Walking Dead. I think the actors are better. It's like it's already a big franchise, so now they can bring in better actors. But again, we've only had 6 episodes, so we'll see. And then finally, and this is sort of a guilty pleasure, Enter the Badlands. It's a new show that just started, only 6 episodes in the first season. And it's sort of like Quentin Tarantino meets dystopian future meets Wild West, Asian martial arts. It's very visually enjoyable. The martial arts are incredible. The fight scenes, I've never seen anything like this on television, at least. Definitely in movies. The acting isn't so, it's a little hokey, but it's just fun. It's a fun dystopian future that I enjoy watching. All right, so those are my top television films. Again, we have in order: Ray Donovan number 1, The Walking Dead number 2, Game of Thrones number 3, The Good Wife number 4, and then as number 5, I'm including a group of honorable mentions: The Leftovers, Bosch, True Detective, Enter the Badlands, and Fear the Walking Dead. There are a few others I've watched and liked, but those to me are the best shows that are on television, or my favorite. All right, later, folks. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see if I can manage clips. That might be beyond my technical ability. So, the first video I wanted to do was about television shows, and really since probably The Sopranos came out in the late 90s, I think it was. We've been seeing a bit of a golden age. All right, folks, I'm going to start this series of videos off that's going to be about movies and television. And just by a way of introduction, I was originally, I had delusions of grandeur that I was going to do formal stage of television. As far as I understand it, there's been different rises and falls, but before then, television was a distant second behind film in terms of talent, right? You might start off as a TV actor and then go into film, and that's still somewhat the case. Sit down videos and have clips of shows, and maybe if this was like a real channel where I was like making significant amounts of money and I was doing it semi-professionally, I would do that. But I don't have the time to really, or maybe it's interest. I have other things that are more, it's not prioritized to do really professional work like that. And also the time it would take for me the learning curve. So you're gonna just have to get it this way. I'll probably do most of these, not all of these, but most of these on driving videos, because that seems to be the way that works best for me, given my schedule. But I'll probably do some sit down and maybe have some